Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips podcast with your geeky host, Lindsay Wheeler, where we talk about everything from death, preparing for your future through estate planning, life, the occasional breakup, entrepreneurship, general nerdery, and of course travel, snowboard, and always wine. Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips with your host, Lindsay, and today we're going to talk about my other favorite thing, which is travel. I've done a travel episode before, but we always like to reiterate things because it's a new year, new you. We're going to go on new adventures. So I recently went on a trip. We got back from Peru and the Galápagos Islands, which was super cool. I did the Salcani Pass in Peru up into Machu Picchu. I went with two of my friends. We had an amazing time. We had such a cool group. Got really lucky with that group. So let's talk about travel. So of course, as you all know, that I have traveled quite extensively. I've been to 32 countries at this point. I hope to get 50 by 50, so I'm really working on that. Whether we reach that goal or not, it is quite the goal I want. I enjoy traveling. I like seeing new things. I like meeting new people. I like seeing new cultures, new food, particularly new wines. It's always fun to go to different regions and different countries and try their wines. And in fact, this last trip, I went to Peru and I had Peruvian wine, which I didn't even think about, frankly. And their wine was great. It was fantastic, actually. So travel is a big thing for me, and I can teach you guys how to travel. We'll talk a little bit about that and my philosophies on traveling. The biggest philosophy about traveling is don't overpack. And in fact, I am guilty of this, but not like you guys probably are. I do not carry any kind of checked baggage, even if I'm going for a month, even if I'm going for 6 weeks or 2 months. I do not bring checked bags because think about this. How much of your shit do you really need? I mean, honestly, how much do you need? Most of us go for maybe a week trip, maybe 2 weeks at the most. That's kind of the normal average American vacation time, if you will. What do you need that you can't live without for 2 weeks? Do you have to have a change of clothes every single day? You need 14 outfits? I'm gonna tell you what, you can stick that in a carry-on. Yes, you can. I can teach you how to do that. You roll really, really tight and you put them in the compression bags that will fit into a carry-on. Also, when you travel and you have checked baggage, oftentimes that baggage gets lost, and that sucks. So not only have you brought all of your shit that you might really like or want, now it's lost. Now it's in Iowa and you're in Barcelona. Oops, that's a problem. So you're gonna have your carry-on anyways, right? It saves you time. So when you get out and you see everybody having to go through customs and they're just congregating around the baggage carousel, you could have been out in a taxi and on your way to dinner. Easy peasy, right? Because you just walk off the plane, go through your immigration with your passport, boom, you got your cool stamp, if they stamp it anymore. It makes me sad that they don't. And you don't have to sit there and wait for your bag to come through. Oftentimes, that takes a long time. I know some of these airline carriers have a guarantee your bag and blah, blah, blah. Why even deal with that? You just literally just keep on walking. I am almost always the first person out of the gate when I travel because I don't pack carry-on or checked baggage, if you will. I just have my carry-on. So think about this. So now you have this big suitcase with you that you're lugging around, and that can actually cost you more money because think about that. You now have this big suitcase that you're lugging around. You might have to go now from the airport to your hotel. You can't just pop on the subway with a big old suitcase. You can, but it's a pain in the ass. You might have to be on a train or a bus or whatever it is to get your location. And now you have this huge suitcase with all your shit having to try to go from these locations, maybe in these tight urban areas or maybe even out remotely. You can't just easily pop into a little tiny Euro car with a big old honkin' American suitcase. And what if there's a family of you and you've got 4 of those honkin' suitcases? Now you have to rent a van, right? So think about the economic disadvantages that you have of lugging these big suitcases around, especially if you're going with a family, right? Another thing is, again, they are a pain in the ass. So pack your suitcase, pack your carry-on or whatever you're gonna have. Now take those suitcases and now go walk around the block twice. Tell me how easy that is now to navigate and how much you wanna be lugging that around. Hills, cobblestones, dirt, whatever it is. For what? An extra pair of shoes that you're probably not gonna wear? Yeah. Also, unless you're going to some crazy place, they have washing facilities in these other countries. It's not like you're going to someplace new. These people have been living for thousands of years and have the same amenities for the most part that you do, right? You can go into a laundromat, which is sometimes kind of fun. You get to meet local people and new people, or the hotel that you're staying at may have laundry services for you, or hostels have laundry services. You can pay to have a washing machine available, which is great, right? Airbnbs too, finding bookings that have washing machines so you can just wash your clothes. Easy on that way too. or just, God forbid, you wear clothes a couple more times. It's not that big of a deal unless you're like super hot in the summer and you're hot and sweaty and you smell funky. Then again, invest in some deodorant, then more clothes or more shoes, if you will. So that's my tips and tricks on actually traveling and traveling light, making sure that you just bring a backpack. I know Rick Steves is literally a tiny backpack. I bring it, a traditional carry-on where I can fit at least a little bit more things. And again, those packing cubes are super, super great to have. You roll your stuff really tight, stick it in that packing cube. They usually have compression that you can get them down. And then you can get a lot more stuff than you really think you need in a small space. And then you have that ease and that kind of, more affordability, if you will, not only with your time, your effort, and your ability to do that. So for me, traveling has been very important my whole life. I've done it my whole life just because my dad's European. So I would go in the summertime, even as an infant, I would travel over to Europe to see my family over there. So I've literally traveled my entire life internationally. So I'm fairly used to it. The first time I remember being on a plane, I think I was 6. And it was really cool, actually, that trip. So when we were flying over the Atlantic, the stewardess was really cool, or flight attendant these days, made sure I got out of my seat and could look at the little, flight attendant window and see the icebergs through the Atlantic. That was really kind of a memorable thing to me, and I thought that was really neat that she was wanted to show that with me. I just think it's fun. Like I said, I love food. Clearly, I love food. I love to eat. I like wine. I like expensive wines. I like European wines. I like pretty much all wines, let's be honest. And I kind of like going to different countries and finding those different unique things. I've even had Moroccan wine, which is obviously not a thing that they're really going to be making, but they did, and it was actually really good. So it's kind of an interesting way to kind of talk with people as well. Of course, alcohol is always the universal breaker of things, so you can always talk to people about that. And people are interested in sharing their cultures with you, especially with food as well. People love sharing their food, their cultural food and their location food, if you will, with you. It's a really cool thing for them to share because that is them. Food unites us all, if you will. So I really enjoy that. I just like traveling, like seeing new things, like seeing history. I like seeing art. I like seeing just different things. So my recent travel was to Peru and to the Galápagos Islands. I was fairly traumatized about the Galápagos Islands. In my brain, for some reason, thought they were going to be like the last bastion of naturalness. Like it was going to be, we were one of the few planes or boats or whatever to go there. And we were going to stay in a bungalow on the water because we don't go into the interior because it's all natural. It's where the turtles live or the tortoises. God, was I wrong? Yeah. It's like, I don't even know how to put it. Tijuana seaside, if you will. Not that Tijuana's bad, but it was more developed than I thought it was going to be by far. There were shops and restaurants and nightclubs and hotels. And like I said, it was just like a mini city, like a border city almost in a way, like Tijuana on the sea, because it is technically on the border because it's its own island that you go over to. And some of the other islands in the Galapagos are not inhabited. Of course, they keep those as natural preserves, but I thought the whole area was. And in fact, the really traumatizing thing is that you land in your little airport. You're like, okay, this is kind of what I envision. And you get on this like bus, like a city bus randomly, and it takes you to the dock. And the dock is sponsored by Kia. Yeah, let me repeat that. The whole island is sponsored by Kia, the car maker. Super, super random. There's boats in the water dumping their diesel fuel, which what boats do, as we all know, naturally. Nothing about that, but you're thinking this is a natural preserve and you're like, what is happening? And then there's like delivery trucks and like small, semi trucks doing deliveries of products. And then you drive in and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole bunch of houses and schools and shops and what? There's a soccer field. What is happening here? Now we get into the more touristy area. Now there's hotels and restaurants and nightclubs and store, all the things that you would think of in a beachside little city, if you will, like a border city. And so that was very traumatizing for me. Like I really felt like, Santa Claus isn't real and your parents are getting divorced and, your hair's falling out. Like that kind of inherent disappointment and sadness in my brain, especially when I saw that things were sponsored by Kia. Cool for them to sponsoring, that's great, but what? So that was unusual. Super cool to see the animals. We went diving there, which the Galapagos has a unique diving It is the coldest I have ever been in my entire life. I literally now know what it feels like to have a Dementor, Harry Potter reference, come and suck the soul out of me. I can see what that coldness, where it says, that you feel cold, like the happiness will never return, that kind of cold in the water. Never experienced that before. Super cool to see. We saw hammerhead sharks, which was amazing. That was a huge highlight for me, like how super cool that was. There were rays, there's some little nudie branches, which were super cool. And the interesting thing about the Galapagos is, of course, they have unique birds there. They have the tortoises, Darwin's tortoises, and they have in the water, they have different types of iguana lizards, if you will. And one of them is the sea iguana, which was super cool. It's all black, so he matches the volcanic area, if you will, and they swim in the sea. They swim in the ocean, and they kind of cruise around, and they're little lizard guys, and they go in there and they eat the plankton, and then they get out, and I called them little squatters, like little splats. They would just get out and they go blap, and they just splat, and they're trying to get back warm because the water, like I said, is horrifically cold. And then they shoot out the salt from the seawater out of their little pores, and you watch them, and they just go pop, and this salt just pops out of them. It's pretty cool. Like, they're super cool. And then there's the regular land ones that don't, like kind of the ones you'll see like more South America, like Mexico area, those kind of iguanas, which is really cool. So it was really unique for that. The birds were super unique. We got to see the blue-footed boobies. So if you like boobies, that's the place to go. Haha, just kidding. It was always the big joke down there. I love boobies. And yeah, they were super cool. And then how they go and they dive for food and everything like that. So yes, it was natural, but it was more developed than I ever thought it was going to be. So prepare yourselves if you ever go. Super cool to see. It's in Ecuador, of course, and the food there is amazing. Obviously fresh seafood that is in there, and wonderful food, good drinks. I'd have you. Peru, on the other hand, was also equally as amazing. If you go to Peru, there are two things that you need to try. One is their ceviche. That is like their national dish. It is the best ceviche I've ever had in my entire life. It is epic. Let me repeat that. The ceviche in Peru is epic. They also have this like yellow chicken rice dish that is like another national dish that is epic as well. It looks terrible. You're like, ooh, that looks like baby. I don't know what's happening there. That is very weird color for this. It is so good. So good. Peru has amazing food, and in fact has like, I think outside of France, like the highest level of Michelin starred restaurants, especially in Lima, which is crazy. Super, super cool. And of course in Peru, you go up in the elevation into the Andes, you have Cusco, you have the Rainbow Mountains, which I unfortunately missed that tour because I was so sick. I was unable to go. I think I just caught a 24-hour flu and was not able to go on that hike, which is I'm very disappointed about, very sad. But sometimes that happens when you travel and you just have to go, well, I guess I'll just have to go back now, right? If I was just throwing up, I would have went because I can hike and throw up. But when you have other things happening, not so good. You're not moving away from that hotel room. Other than that, we did the Salcane Pass over into Machu Picchu. Usually we'll do a tour guide with that or a tour group. A lot of times I don't like to have tours, especially if I'm in bigger cities. I like to kind of explore on my own. But for those kind of like natural hikes or whatever, Peru, Nepal, if you're doing base camp, having a guide is almost necessary. It's almost, mandatory. But you'll have other people on your tour, and sometimes that can be hit and miss. Sometimes you'll have great people, other times you'll have not so great people. I was so fortunate, and my friends and I were so fortunate to have an amazing group on our trip. They were super fun. Everybody really got along. Everybody was very fun and they were just fun group, super fun. So that trip and that hike was memorable, and for so many reasons, just because the nature, seeing those cool things, seeing Machu Picchu, of course, was super historic and really, really neat to see. That's obviously one of the 7 wonders and definitely a bucket list item, so I can check that one off. So that was great. And then from there, we had a birthday down in Mexico, which I like going to Mexico all the time. The beaches are there. The diving's great. Went diving down there as well. So that was also really fun and more close, easier to get to, obviously, from the West Coast. Next trip's planned. I need to adult here for a minute, unfortunately, and kind of get things together. I usually like to just YOLO it out and go travel about the world. But there's some things that I need to take care of personally here in the U.S. for a minute. But the next trip is we're hoping, so my friend who went on the Peru trip with me is German, and his mother is German, and I think it's high time for us all to go do Oktoberfest with him and his family. So I think the group of us are all planning to go do Oktoberfest in late September. which will give me a little bit of time to get my stuff in order and then go do that. And of course, as you know, my dad is European, and so I travel a lot. I always try to see my dad. He is getting a little bit older, so he's not wanting to travel so far over to the States anymore. So it's my job now to go see him over there, which, oh no, I have to go to Europe. Go hang out with him. The last time I was there, I saw him in Bordeaux. He came over and hung out with me there. My dad, being the funny English man that he is, he decided that he wanted to not hang out with his only daughter, but he wanted to then go to Turkey and to go see the balloons in Cappadocia. Which again, I'm like, really, Dad? Really? Your only daughter's here and you're going to go over there? I was visiting with him. I'm like, oh, so Dad, what are we doing tomorrow? And he's like, oh no, Lindsay, I'm leaving tomorrow. And I'm like, what do you mean you're leaving tomorrow? He's like, I'm going to Turkey to go to Cappadocia to see the balloons. I'm like, first off, Dad, I would like to go see the balloons in Cappadocia. You could have told me and we could have went together because that would have been awesome. And two, what the hell, man? And then he said, and next time I come over, please pick someplace else more exciting. He feels like he has done all of France and he would like to go someplace else now. Okay, Dad, this is my bougie dad. I wonder where I get it from. Also, my dad is a spindly English vegetarian man and can out-hike all of us in his mid to late 70s. So always keeping fit, always keeping together is very important. I've learned that from my dad, that he goes hiking every morning. He does about 5 or 6 miles up on the English coast, getting his steps in. And like I said, can, in his mid to late 70s, go bebop over to Turkey and check out some balloons. Super cool. So always keep that activity up there because, you're going to need it, especially if you want to travel becoming an older adult. So this wine talk today is Copper Mine. It's, a Sierra Foothills 2016. It's Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is my favorite wine. It's my favorite varietal. And I just learned this, but I did not know that if you like Cabernet Sauvignon, go ahead and try a Cab Franc because it actually is crossed with Sauvignon Blanc, a white variety, which creates the Cabernet Sauvignon, which was super interesting. I actually didn't know that. I just learned that today. So I will actually be trying both of those and kind of comparing that. Again, if you like the kid, you'll like the parent and vice versa. There's a lot of botany involved with that you have a white and a black grape, and they make another black grape. So look at the Mendel chart that you learned in school, kids. A lot of us are taught in our society that we work really hard, we go to school, we work really hard, and then we retire and then we travel. Well, unless you're like my dad and you keep very fit for yourself, most of us are not hiking Saucony Pass or going to base camp when we're in our 70s after we've retired, or late 60s, right? Especially the rest of us who are sitting at desks all day long, hint, hint, myself included, need to get up and walk around more, to make sure that we're able to do those things. But even me getting older now, I'm starting to get tired about things. It's harder for me to walk around these cities and do all these things, or walking and hiking and stuff. So I am a big proponent. I think Tim Ferriss talks about it, about mini retirements in a weird way, that you might have lesser money right now, but you're going to use that money that you would have retired with now for your mini retirement. So you're going to take that money and those funds that you have, that you may have put aside for later on, and use that to go travel and to go experience these things. Especially when you're younger, taking those many times, longer types of vacations, not the 10 days or the 7 days, but maybe you're taking a whole month off. Maybe you're able to do that with your work. I don't know these days anymore if anybody's able to do that. Especially with the new climate of America, it makes it a little bit more difficult for people, and we're having a lot of, obviously, inflation and difficulty in funding our lives because they're becoming more expensive. But if you're able to do that, it's very worth it. Just taking that time, go visit the world, go see things, go do things while you're able to physically, because in my line of work, I have a lot of clients, and this really breaks my heart, honestly, that are like, we worked really hard, my wife and I, and we were saving up, and unfortunately my wife just passed away. We didn't get to do any of the things we talked about. Or we saved up, we worked really hard, we've retired, and now I have cancer and I have a year left to live and didn't get to go do anything. I've worked really hard, I've saved up, I'm now retired, and my wife or my husband is not able to do those things. Maybe they have physical limitations or mental limitations. So kind of doing these things now and living your life now, taking mini gap years, if you will, the European term, for yourself is important. Go experience the world, go experience other cultures. It makes you a better person. It makes you more aware of other people. It makes you aware of other cultures. It makes you more amenable to other people and more tolerant, if you will. So think it's very important. If you have questions about traveling, you have questions about how to set up your bag, you have questions how to downsize your bag, please call me on that. I love talking about that and different unique ways to cram a bunch of shit into your bag that you probably don't need anyways, but you'll feel good that you have it in there, and making it more accessible for you to kind of bebop around without lugging that huge suitcase around and then maybe incurring those more fees or limitations with those bags. And of course, if you want to get your estate plan in place before you do travel, that's super important as well. Bad things happen, I guess, as you will. We don't expect the plane to go down, but we do that safety briefing. That estate plan is the exact same thing when we travel. So making sure that those power of attorney designations are in place, those financial, those medical ones, in case you're in an accident, something happens, maybe you get geographically stuck, maybe we have another COVID. Hopefully, knock on wood, we never have experienced anything that ridiculous ever again in our lifetime. But say you're unable to travel and you're not able to get back to pay your bills, you have those documents in place so somebody can take care of those things for you. So things we got to think about in the world, even if we're only gone for a couple days, having them in place, making sure those guardianship nominations for underage children are in place and that estate plan is in place. So get those in order. And if you have questions on getting that set up, of course, you can always find me at yourestateplan.online. And as always, when you think about death, think of me. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you found value, please like, subscribe, and share. And be sure to follow me on all the socials at Sips and Tips with Lindsay. And of course, you can always go to my website, sipsandtipswithlindsay.com, to find more information about estate planning, business, snowboard, travel, and of course, wine. As always, we have to get the legal stuff out of the way. I went to law school, so you don't have to. However, we have to read the special disclaimer that I am not a practicing attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not offering any legal advice in any content or any episode. All content is for your information and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for seeking your own legal advice from your own attorney or other professionals such as a CPA or financial advisor. I cannot give legal advice and do not offer any legal services or legal advice, but I do offer some fun and educational content for you to enjoy.